Hello there, and welcome to part 2 of our double act, our duopoly of videos looking at the summers and autumns of the early 1920s. We did part 1 of this series yesterday, where we looked at the summer and the autumn of 1921. Very, very hot summer and autumn, particularly hot July and October. You're going to see part 2 now, which is going to be covering 1922, and what a contrast this summer and autumn is compared to what happened in the year before. Two very, very, very different years. So I shall get on that for you in a second. Just say that I'm on holiday at the moment. I'm in Tenerife, hopefully having a good time, soaking up the atmosphere, or certainly soaking up something. And so, yeah, I'm stretched out on a beach, I'm sure, with a book in one hand and a beer in another, and I'm having a nice time. But I want to keep some content going on the channel, so I thought I'd do a couple of little surprise historic videos for all of you, and yeah, so I hope you're enjoying this look at the summers and autumns of the the 1920s. If you are, then please can you like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. I'll be back in the UK, in Britain, next week, and you know, the vids will all be getting back to normal next week as well, with your regular 10-14 days and whatnot. Right, so I've got to say thank you so much to the Historic Archive of Charts at Veta. Thank you so much to vetacentral.de for the charts, and also to Trevor Hardy, the information that you hear in this video, because I wasn't born in 1921. I wasn't even a twinkle in mum and dad's eye in 1921. In fact, mum and dad weren't even a twinkle in their mum and dad's eyes in 1921. That's how far back we're going. We're going back to when my grandparents, you know, were young adults. So that's how far back we're going. So yes, and actually, I don't even think my grandparents were born in 1921, 1922. I don't think they were. One of my grandparents, my grandmother might have been. Should have gone off on this tangent, really, should I? I'll get back on to business. But we are going back a very, very long time. So all the information that you hear is coming from Trevor Hardy. And I say thank you so much to Trevor, and also to Veta for supplying the charts and the information, respectively. Thank you so much. I'm the smallest cog in the wheel with all of this. But what really makes the Historic Vids work is the archive of charts, along with the information that you hear. And you can find a link to both of those websites in the description with this video. Thank you so much. Right, let's crack on then and have a look at 1922. Here we go. Here we go, then, everyone. Let's just get me notes ready. Okay, so starting the storyline with part 2 in May. So, May 2022 has a cool, showery start, although there is a fine spell between the 6th to the 8th with 80 Fahrenheit, 27 degrees, I should say, recorded on the 8th. Let's see what happens. We've got low pressure over Denmark here on the first day of May 1922. We're pulling in these cool northerly winds across the country. Low pressure then comes slinking in from off the Atlantic around the 3rd of May, bringing wet and windy weather with it. Now, here comes a ridge building up from the southwest by the 5th. So as we get to the 6th, there we go. We've got high pressure now starting to build up from the south, with drier and warmer weather with it. That high pressure strengthening through the 7th through to the 8th, and this is when we are getting that spell of fine weather that Trevor Hardy talks about, with 27 degrees 80 Fahrenheit in London on this day. Let's have a look at the upper air temperatures. They do look very warm, plus 10 Celsius isoberm is there into the south. I assume after the summer that had just gone, you know, the summer and the autumn of 1921, lots of people would have thought, here we go again. Hot weather is returning. Well, I think we're in for a bit of a rude awakening, but we go on into the second week of May, and we find 1922, we find that high pressure going towards Greenland and Iceland as cooler or colder air starts pushing in from the north. And Trevor Hardy says it then turned colder from the 10th. There was frost on the 13th in an unusually cold week mid-month. -4 Celsius is recorded at Benson in Oxfordshire. Goodness gracious me. There was 150 millimetres of rain in Argyll between the 14th and the 15th. So obviously cold air is plunging southwards on these northeasterly winds. There's the -5 Celsius ice firm getting into Scotland there, 11th to the 12th. And here comes this area of low pressure. That brings lots of wet weather in with it, but it is forcing the high southwards, so starting to see a recovery in the temperature starting to take place there towards the middle of the month, with milder air beginning to return from the south and from the southwest too. Not quite unsettled though, with plenty of rain to come. May 1922, by the way, had central temperature 12.7, which is very warm for May, especially in that era. Now we're coming up to the 19th, 20th, and high pressure strengthening from the south started to push back northwards again. And Trevor Hardy writes, the month ended with an exceptional hot spell in late May, 32.8 degrees in London, Camden, on the 22nd, but the period from the 21st to the 24th was generally very hot, Camden reaching 30.6, 32.8, 31.7 and 32.2, hovering constantly around the upper 80s to 90 Fahrenheit mark on all of those 4 days. Trevor Hardy goes on. In fact, this is the earliest date in the year on which that year's highest temperatures was attained this century. The earliest date with which 90 Fahrenheit has been reached, and the 22nd was the equal hottest May day of the century, along with 1944. It is also one of those 3 occasions when the hottest day of the year was in May. So that's only happened 3 times in the 20th century as well. The great heat was confined to East Anglia and South East England, and presumably the Midlands at times. The heat led to violent thunderstorms. Wow. I haven't got that in a moment. But certainly we've got high pressure, south and east low pressure away to the north and west here through the 20th-21st May. Look at the upper air temperatures, plus 15 Celsius ice firm is into the southeast corner. That's very early in the year to be seeing that 21st of May. So that's the reason we're getting those temperatures to the upper 80s, 88, 90 Fahrenheit mark. 23rd, 24th, 25th, we've got low pressure trying to come in from off the Atlantic, and we do get some violent thunderstorms in this period. So Trevor Hardy says the great heat was confined to East and South East England. The heat led to violent thunderstorms on 24th to 25th. Large hailstones in Wensleydale. That's where about cheese, isn't it? Much glass broken in Tunbridge. At Tunbridge Wells, the hailstones average size of a pitching egg. Oh, wow, pitching egg. Pitching egg, I should say. And dented cars, smashed windows, and brought down tree branches. It was a very dry month in some places, with only 11 millimetres of rain at Ross on Wye. We're coming towards the end of this very bizarre May of 1922, still with high pressure in the ascendancy, bringing lots of dry and fine weather. Probably not as hot as it was earlier in the month, but the plus 15 Celsius iceberg have gone slipping back down into northern France. But still very warm, I would have thought. Still with temperatures well and truly into the 20s Celsius. That's all as we get to month 10 in May 1922. Perhaps just a hint that the high pressure is beginning to weaken. Right, Ben, so that takes us on into summer 1922. First day of meteorological summer and the first day of June 1922 looks like this. Trevor Hardy writes, the early heat wave ended on the 1st, generally a dry sunny month, but with cooler unsettled spells from the 14th to the 15th and from the 24th onwards. The temperature at Kew was 76 Fahrenheit on the 12th, but only 53 Fahrenheit on the 14th. Remember, this is before we change to centigrade, so lots of the temperatures you hear are going to be in Fahrenheit. And 76 Fahrenheit, that's going to be around 24, 25 Celsius. 24 is 75, 25 is 77. So it's like mid-20s Celsius there on the 12th, but only 53 Fahrenheit on the 14th. And 53 Fahrenheit is going to be about 11 to 12 degrees Celsius. I still know my C to my F and my F to my C. I'm the last generation that knows their C and F. Anyway, let's see what happens then. So we've got an area of low pressure trying to come in from off the Atlantic. And I'm sure, as I say, after that very, very hot spell in May, I'm sure everybody was thinking, here we go again. After what happened in 1921, everybody got to have been thinking, oh, well, this is it. We're off and running again with another hot summer. But it's not going to work out like that. I hope I'm not letting cats out of that, but it won't be working out quite like that. But in the opening days of June 1922, it's still got some higher pressure ridging into south, albeit the centre is pulling out into the Atlantic Ocean, but still plenty of high pressure ridging through the country during this period. So we're coming into the second week of June, and rather slack gradients, high pressures over Scandinavia actually. It's just generally weakening, I think. It had a very strong area of high pressure for the second half of May, but it is generally weakening now with this ridge of high pressure. Nevertheless, it's still strong enough to be producing some warmth, and so on this day, as I say, we did get temperature into mid-20s Celsius in southern parts of the country. But the high pressure is pulling more out to our west as we're going into the middle part of the month. And so we're going to get some cooler upper air temperature coming along now. Look at those upper air temperature looking significantly cooler there. And this is a day where we only get the temperature like 11, 12 Celsius at Q after that very warm day a couple of days before. But still quite an anticyclonic influence. So I think it's still largely dry a lot of the time through this period. However, we're getting further and further on into June, and this high pressure is being put into more and more pressure as low pressure is developing around Iceland. And so we're going to find that eventually the high pressure is breaking. By the 24th, here we go, the high pressure pulling out into the middle of the Atlantic, a deep area of low pressure then starting to slip in from off the Atlantic Ocean. And that sets us into what looks like an unsettled, potentially very unsettled final week of June 1922. And this is the pattern of the summer now starting to develop. Last day of June 1922 with a deep area of low pressure in the Atlantic moving in from the Atlantic Ocean into the UK and Ireland. June 1922 had a central temperature of 13.8, which is probably about average for that era. Would today be classed as a little bit on the cool side, but that then probably close to average. But look how we begin July, high summer of 1922, a deep dartboard area of low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic Ocean, and this sets the scene for what is one of the worst Julys ever recorded. So July CT for 1922 is just 13.7. It's actually 0.1 of a degree cooler than the June before it. And it's not like the June was excessively warm either. And Trevor Hardy says that it was the coldest July of the 20th century, the century temperature of 13.7. Also very wet in places, particularly in the south. There was a total of 185 millimetres of rain through this month in Norwich. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It was a windy start to the month. There was a wet start to the month with 62 millimetres of rain falling at Newbury, being the heaviest fall of rain that has affected the south. 69 millimetres of rain fell at Norwich on the 15th alone. 74 millimetres of rain fell in Coventry on the 22nd. A dull month too. Yuck! That's Trevor Hardy saying that, not me. Right, okay, well, I better have a look at these charts, haven't we? And yes, low pressure is well and truly in the ascendancy through the first week. So all of these sort of lows coming in from the west will be bringing spells of rain. Look at this one coming up from the southwest on the 5th. That will be bringing torrential rain, and it develops into a significant low as well. So not only torrential rain with that, but also gale force winds as well. How the upper air temperatures look, they're very, very cool. But look how hot it is to our south and east over much of the continent. That heat, of course, helping to fuel the area of low pressure there. So this is a classic example of like cool Atlantic air and the jet stream being invigorated by the hot air that's to the south and the east on the continent and helping to develop an area of low pressure. So we carry on. That's the 6th of July, very unsettled. 7th to the 8th, we've got another major low coming in. Look at this. There's definitely a hint of like July 2007, 2012 with these charts. If anybody remembers those 2 Julys, 2007 and 2012, definitely a hint of those 2 years with these deep areas of low pressure. A little bit better here. We're up to the 10th of July. We've got a slight little transient ridge building across the country. So a few days of something a little bit drier and warmer. It is July, so the Azores High will always have a go, but it doesn't really last very long, so it doesn't stick. The next low's coming back in from off the Atlantic on the 13th, and so we're going to the middle of July, off and running into more very unsettled weather with that area of low pressure over the top of the country, bringing showers and long spells of rain, and cool air is coming in with that too, with winds coming in from a northerly direction. Heavy showers, long spells of rain, probably thunderstorms as well. Slack gradients here up to the 19th of July, but the next low is starting to head in from off the Atlantic once again. And there we go, 23rd of July, again under low pressure. That will be bringing very wet weather into more southern parts of the country, I would imagine. A little bit drier for a couple of days, but not for long. The next low by 25th, 26th of July starts to head back in from off the Atlantic Ocean. And on it goes into the end of the month with low pressure just sitting over top of the country, continue to bring lots of unsettled weather with it. As I say, at 13.7, that is the coldest July of the 20th century. Remember, the year before we had a July city of 18.5. So what a difference! That's like 5 degrees or something difference between those 2 months. Absolutely incredible. And the unsettled weather goes on into August as well. August 1922 has a central temperature of 13.6. What an appalling summer this is. 2 months, July and August, both in the 13s. Goodness gracious me. Trevor Hardy say changeable, dull and cool. It was very wet over the bank holiday weekend of the 6th and the 7th. 125 millimetres of rain at Worksop on the 28th. Later, 93 millimetres fell at Blanoo on the 16th. Later, 95 millimetres of rain at St Anne's in Lancashire. There was a moderately warm and settled spell from the 17th to the 21st. It went to colder and more unsettled again. Let's see how that happens, Ben. I would think this is the only time we've had both July and August in the 13s as well. For, you know, it probably has happened before, but it would be very unusual. Right, so we're going through the first week with slack gradients, but still low pressure influences, bringing showers and or longer spells of rain with it. This is heading into the bank holiday weekend. This is Sunday, 6th. Low pressure out to the west. Not what's going to happen with that. The low pressure comes meandering in from off the Atlantic by bank holiday Monday, 7th of August. Remember, August bank holiday back then was the first Monday of the month. Now we do it on the last Monday of the month. I think Scotland might still do it on the first Monday of the month, though. Anyway, low pressure right over top of the country there from the 6th, 7th, 8th, bring copious amounts of rain. No doubt lots of flooding as well. Really cool temperatures. Look at the upper air temperatures. I mean, got the 0 Celsius iceberg into Scotland. That's autumnal type air. Only the +5 Celsius iceberg into south. Meanwhile, much of southern, east and southeast of Europe is absolutely roasting. Italy, the Balkans, Greece, looking really, really hot. That's where the summer was in 1922 after that warm May. Anyway, we go on into the second week of August. More low pressure piling in from off the Atlantic, bringing further spells of rain with it. And we try to get some higher pressure going into the south. The Azores High will always have a go at this time of the year, but it just isn't coming off. Low pressure too powerful in the Atlantic. So another dose of wet, windy weather there from the 15th to the 16th to the 17th of August. Goodness gracious me. What must have thought back then. However, we are going to get a little bit of a break. So the 18th, 19th, the Azores high starts to make a little bit of a move and builds up from the southwest, being something slightly drier and warmer. Trevor Hardy says it was moderately warm and settled from the 17th to the 21st. I mean, he's not going overboard, is he? Trevor's not going overboard with that. But we have got the plus 10 Celsius firming across England and Wales. But I don't think it's going to last for long. And by the 23rd, yeah, we've got low pressure back in the North Sea again. And we're pulling in those cool and showering north to northwesterly winds. And we keep the areas of low pressure ruling in from off the Atlantic as we go through the last week of this absolutely atrocious summer. And quite rightly, quite appropriately, we're ending it under low pressure. That's the 30th of August, a deep low back in over top of the country, bringing further heavy rain in from off the Atlantic, spells of rain and whatnot there as we come to the final day of meteorological summer 1922. But we're not done there. We're going to go on to the autumn next. So September of 1922 is dull and cool but dry in Scotland and in the southeast. There were some severe thunderstorms to start the month, presumably under this trough of low pressure that we're under just here. This September has a temperature of 12.2, by the way, so it really is quite a cold month to say the least. So what happens? Well, high pressure is having a go at building over the coast. And also it should be quite warm, doesn't it? But the upper air temperatures also look relatively warm out to the west as well. So what does Trevor Hardy write about that? Let's have a look. So he says 75 millimetres of rain fell in Blackpool on the morning of the 1st, but from the 3rd to the 11th it was quiet, dry and warm but cloudy with fog at night. So this is cloudy high, so although the upper air temperatures are warm and probably getting the temperature into the upper teens Celsius, I would have thought something like that. Because there's a lot of cloud, we don't particularly realise the temperature potential. Otherwise, this could have been a warmer month, actually, under this area of high pressure. It's a cloudy high, so, you know, sort of murky conditions under that ridge of high pressure. It then turned colder and more showery with northwest winds from the 16th. So we'll get to that in a moment. But high pressure is in the ascendancy here through the first of 10 days of the month. But by the 11th, 12th of September, low pressure comes in from off the Atlantic. That's returning us back to cool, wet and settled conditions. Oh, wow. That's proper autumnal weather by the 13th. That must have brought a lot of rain, that area of low pressure. Although Trevor Hardy says it's relatively dry month for Scotland and South East England. But that looks really unsettled. 995 millibar area of low pressure there in across south. That low pressure heads off to Denmark by the 14th. We pull in those cool north or northeasterly winds, and then more low pressure starts heading in from off the Atlantic as we get through to the 16th, on into the 17th, 18th, 19th, all looking very Atlantic driven and westerly. Upper air temperatures warm in the south, but you see how cool air is lurking in the north. That's like a classic September chart, really, where you've got a duel going on between autumn lurking just to the north and west and summer trying to hold on down to the south and southeast. Of course, it's only going to go in one direction. Autumn will win out to the end, but it is getting held up here a little bit by this area of high pressure. The high pressure then repositioning, or trying to, as we move towards the final week of the month. That's a subtropical feature. That's like an ex-hurricane or tropical storm or something moving in to the Atlantic. That's going to really shake things up, I think. So by the 25th of September 1922, yes, we're turning properly wet and windy with that deep area of low pressure sweeping in from off the Atlantic Ocean. It doesn't really write anything about that, but it must have brought a lot of very wet and windy weather with it, that area of low pressure. And we come to the end of September 1922 with high pressure centred to our south and low pressure is away to the northwest. So still trying to hold on some higher pressure to the south, but autumn is increasingly getting a foothold. And then that takes us into October. Now, October 1922 is cold. So you remember in part 1 we talked about October 1921 being really warm along with July. They were 2 very excessively warm months. Well, October 1922 only has a central temperature of 8.2, which is very cold to come in that low. Goodness gracious. And there's even some snow, can you believe, across lowland southern England on the 29th of October 1922. We start off with this ridge of high pressure in the opening days being put under pressure by these areas of low coming in from off the Atlantic. High pressure then repositions over the country, but the upper air temperatures are quite chilly under that area of high pressure, so I'd imagine there's some quite cold nights going on. Certainly ground frost, probably some air frost with that area of high pressure. Showing up a little bit more of a southerly here up by 12th of October, starting to turn a little bit warmer by then, but the high pressure is still fending off these areas of low pressure in the Atlantic, so nowhere near as wet and as unsettled with this October. But the high pressure increasingly towards Scandinavia, pulling in the wind from an easterly direction there. That's bringing properly cool air in from the east. Cold air is sitting over the eastern side of Europe as well, with those east winds. High pressure increasingly going into retrograde. It's you know how I love a bit of retrogression. The high pressure is retrogressing towards Greenland and Iceland, starting to drag in more of a north or a northeasterly there. Again, the upper air temperatures are looking cold to our north and northeast. And we come towards the closing days of the month with high pressure blocking to the north. Cold air wants to plunge southwards. I think we will start to tap into that in a moment. Yes, look at this. Low pressure goes southwards towards Spain, Portugal. In come those northeasterly winds, courtesy of the blocking area of high pressure around Greenland Iceland. That's the 27th of October, -5 cells iceberg is pushing through the country, bringing wintry showers, I would have thought, to many places. 29th, look at this. Low pressure pushing up from the south into that cold air. Oh, the upper air temperatures look like that, relatively warm just over the continent, over France, but cold to the north of the country, and presumably as that low pressure and its wet weather comes into that cold air, that's where the snow comes from across lowland southern parts of England. Remember, between the 0 Celsius iceberg, which is just here, and the -5 Celsius iceberg just there, it can snow depending on the exact parameters within the atmosphere. So there was snow across lowland southern England in the closing days of October 1922. Remember how hot the previous October had been. Into November of 1922, deep below off the east coast of Scotland, bringing more cold air back in from the north on those northerly winds. However, the November CT is 5.9, so it is still quite cold, but it isn't cold as the November before. And by the way, the yearly CT for 1922 is just 8.7 for the whole year, which, and that doesn't include a cold winter. There's no cold winter in 1921, 1922. It's actually a mild winter, or a mildish winter. So that all happens because of like the summer in particular, and also the autumn as well. But in total contrast, you know, from one year to the other, 1921 had a yearly CT of, what was it, 10.5, I think, and this year, just 1 year on, 8.7. So it just goes to show how quickly things can flip around. This November starts cold with low pressure over Scandinavia, drawing down those cold north-northeast winds. They're bringing wintry showers, I would have thought, snow showers into the north. And then low pressure in off the Atlantic, bringing wet, windy, but probably less cold weather with it. There's actually a lot of smog and fog during this November as well. Reason being, high pressure, you're going to start biting back. There we go, it's ridging up from the southwest. But of course, we're in a different area. It might be a mild ridge now, but back then, it didn't take much to get smog and fog going under these areas of high pressure, and that is a classic, you know, that's an absolutely classic example of a pattern that would deliver in November a lot of fog and smog, as indeed we had during this November. Upper air temperature quite low, and as I say, if that happened now, it might probably get temperature into like double digits, 10, 11, 12 Celsius in November, but back then, that's a cold area of high pressure with fog, frost and smog, and very, very dirty air, and that high pressure sticking around the country. We have a go, a half-hearted go at northerly there, but that doesn't really come to anything. High pressure just keeps on going right way up to month's end. And we'll end it there, I think. The winter of 1922-1923 is another mild winter. Many of the winters in the first 40 years of the 20th century are mild. There's a few colder ones in there, 1917, 1929. We have a few cold winters, but many of the winters in the first 40 years of the 20th century are mild, and particularly so in the sort of early to middle 1920s. So there's no cold winters in between these summers and autumns and whatnot. The interest really is in the summers and also in the autumns, and also in the fact that they are such contrasting years, to be so very warm with the UCT 921 at 10.5 and so very cool at 8.2 or whatever it was in 1922. Absolutely incredible. Right, okay, well, I hope you found this duo of videos looking at the summers and the autumns of 1921 and 1922 interesting and informative. If you have, then please do like, share, subscribe. As I say, I'm on my holes, but I will be back next week, so all of the vids will come back around the middle of next week. I get back on the 19th, Wednesday the 19th of July, and after that, all of the regular content will return. So thank you so much for spending this time with me for these two historic videos, parts 1 and parts 2, and I think we'll end it there. So you enjoy the rest of your week, and for this video in 2 parts, that's all for now, and thanks so much.